Good morning, everyone. It is Wednesday morning, actually 10 o'clock this week instead of 11 o'clock Central. We're doing our brown bag lunch. I agreed to speak to a group in an hour, and so we're backing this up 1 hour. So, the purpose of this thing weekly is to just keep giving you tips and knowledge and ideas for how to compete for the talent that you need in your air conditioning company with culture instead of wages. I had an interaction with Facebook on Facebook this week where someone who was a technician was like, "Oh, I can't pay my bills with culture," and it was a good point because of the way I was saying it. Um, my issue is that you don't get away by paying lower wages when you compete with culture. It's just that the market dictates what you have to pay, and so you're not going to make yourself stand out unless you way are paying a lot of money, and that path just creates a different experience that doesn't result in fruitful, happy technicians. So, and I've got plenty of research to show that's true. So, when I talk about competing for talent with culture, what we're really talking about is setting yourself up, you and your company, to be different in its communication, in its treatment of technicians, in the communication that you have with them. And in today's conversation about their status. So let's talk about status. By status, I'm talking about a real or perceived ranking of who has more authority, who is more important, who is more whatever than someone else, right? Social status, that kind of thing. So in the animal kingdom, all conscious animals, and ultimately we do the same thing. I mean, you don't get this from plants, but all animals rank themselves when you put them together in order from most competent to least competent naturally. So, for example, if I take 5 random chimpanzees and I put them into a cage together, they will fight with each other until one is clearly the top one, then a number 2, then a number 3, then a number 4, then a number 5. And so then when we test the blood of these chimpanzees, this is a real study, we test their blood, we realize that the hormones that carry feelings of happiness and well-being, like serotonin and dopamine, there's more of that in the top monkey and progressively less in each one going down. And then the behavioral people also observe that whoever the monkey is at the bottom is demonstrably unhappy. Okay, so this is not hard to transfer over to technicians. Like if you're treating them in a way that they feel like they're at the bottom status wise, if they feel chewed out by a dispatcher, let's just take that one. If they feel like they just got chewed out by a dispatcher, it's not just a matter of I don't like someone talking to me that way. If they're feeling like they're being placed below someone else, they're going to have a hormonally reduced happiness, literally. Okay. So you have to be able to think through how does status work in my company, and how do I confer it to people in a way that they feel like they matter, that they feel like they're not the bottom rung of the ladder, that somehow in this company, no one's actually the bottom rung of the ladder. We're all in it together, or however you do that. So the question then is how? How do you do that? Well, one of the ways to do that is by balancing warmth and competence in what your communication is doing with them. Now, this concept, the fundamental concept, comes from a researcher named Vanessa Van Edwards, who is a very good human behavior researcher. She does a lot of research around hormonal response as well. So this warmth and competence model comes first from her. I'm layering my thoughts on top of that. So what are we talking about? Warmth is when you're projecting care and concern for the other. You're setting aside status and you're choosing relationship over results. So when you engage someone with warmth, you're saying we're on the same level. And I care about you. That's when the warmth is being put out there. When you're engaging someone with competence, you're projecting capability, you're acknowledging status and authority, and you're leaning into results over the relationship. All right. Now, in my experience, a lot of craft labor companies try to just live on the competent side of it. And if that hurts your feelings, that's too bad. Right. So on the other hand, it does not work to just overkill with warmth, because as a leader, if you only bring warmth, they won't respect you. They won't. They'll like you, and they might want to have a beer with you, but when push comes to shove, they're not going to do what you're asking them to do if they don't want to do it. Right. So there has to be a zone in the middle, and in the middle of those two things, when those two things are balanced properly, you get charisma, which is by charisma, I mean a magnetic likability and trust. And you are for them the kind of person they want to work for, right? So essentially, this is the relationship with the authority in it, but to them it feels good because you're giving them status by saying, look, I'm in charge, but you're more important than me. What I'm going to create an expectation, but my commitment is to give you what you need to be successful. And that increases that status, right? So the two things I just want to point out today are what words you use and a little bit about eye contact. So this is very granular, but it's important. And the goal here is not to make you turn into some very self-aware, self-conscious kind of communicator. What I do want to encourage you to have, though, kind of in your hip pocket, is how do I do warm? You, meaning how do you do warm and how do you do competence? Like, if you're warm, there's certain words that go with warmth, like let's connect. I end my emails with the word cheers quite often. Together, excited, happy to be here. We're in this together. Like that kind of language is warmth language, right? So in your case, if you want to be warm with someone, do you have a method? That's all I'm asking you for. Do you have a method? If, find some words that are your phrases and your way of doing it. So when you realize, oh, I need to go warm in this conversation, you're not kind of searching for how am I doing? Are we supposed to hug? Like what? Because there's a lot of people who don't know what to do with warmth, especially in a craft labor business. So it has to stay professional, but it also has to communicate. Let's lay aside this deadline for a minute and just tell me about you. Warmth is also important when you're doing certain kinds of training on the job, so that the competence is going to talk about how's this project going. Warmth is going to get into what are you learning while you're doing it. Okay. Now, at the other end of it are the competence words, and they're things like productivity, being effective, we'll power through, we need to be efficient, we're streamlined, we're leading over here. Like those are your competence words, right? So how do you project competence when you need to? Now there's some people, and I've seen both ends of the spectrum and some in the middle. There's some people, they just project way too much warmth and not enough competence, and they don't understand why people don't really follow their direction. I've also had people be this is probably more common in an air conditioning company, project way too much competence. And what happens is the people following you won't tell you what their real problems are because they're afraid to tell you. And there's not enough warmth for them to feel safe to tell you. So they don't solve those problems. You don't get those problems solved because you don't even know they're there. You don't even know they're happening. All right. So with your words, you need warmth and you need competence. Now, with eye contact, this is a second piece of this. Vanessa has done a wonderful job of researching this and documenting it. So when you're making eye contact, if you're doing warmth, the eye contact is from eye to eye and to the mouth, like that, right? That zone is where a warm eye contact is coming from. If you're doing competence, it's up here. It's eye to eye, and up to the forehead. Okay. Now, these two things just trigger the hormonal responses that we're talking about. Right? They just do. Okay. So if you're giving this eye contact, it's going to trigger that, oh, we're doing competence right now. And if you do down here, this is why in a happy hour works in a loud bar after work, because you lean in and you're looking right at someone's mouth, and it's triggering warmth in our unconscious perceptions. And then there's a third one that goes here to here and then down to this little spot on our throats. And that's the eye contact that tracks with seeking a mate. So there's a different thing going on there. And for the women who are listening to this, if you're ever having a conversation with someone and it just feels creepy, but you don't know why, this may be why, this eye contact. Now, not down here, just right here, that little cup or whatever right here in the bottom of your throat. So those are the three eye contacts you should be aware of. The competence one that comes up here north of your eyes, the warmth eye contact that stays down here closer to your mouth, and then the mate seeking, which drops down to your throat and back up again. We actually have unconscious ways of registering people's different hormonal states with all this eye contact. We're not really conscious of it. We just do it. Okay. So there's some things for you to chew on today. Your warmth words, your warmth position, your competence word, your competence position with the eye contact, keeping in mind that what we're trying to do with this is help people, help technicians in particular, feel status inside of our companies, because that generates warm feelings that connects them culturally to your company and to you as a manager. I mean, you've heard me say it before, that the number one factor in whether someone loves their job is whether they like their manager. And what I've just given you is a game plan for likability. Okay. So the trust and the desire to follow your leadership comes from this balance of warmth and competence. And it's not, I think, super complicated. We just forget about it. And usually we have a deadline. We start talking to people competence only. They feel disconnected from us because they feel below us as in status. And then this decline happens in their engagement. Okay. So warmth, competence, and charisma. Thank you to Vanessa for some of this as well. And for you, thank you for listening through this. And if you'd like to talk more about this, you want to reach out and ask questions, please feel free to comment below. Or reach out. I'd be happy to get on the phone with you for 15 minutes. We just get to know each other a little bit. So that's it. My name's John Sherk, and I am going to sign out right now. Thanks.